So, as I was saying, we will kick off first with a presentation, and what you see on your screen is just a short description of the status of ECOWREX. I want to believe that many of you are familiar with ECOWREX. You have gone through the portal so many times, but there have been quite a number of changes. Now, I'm only going to be talking about a section of ECOWREX, a section of the portal, and that has to do with the ECOWREX Interactive Data Portal. Now, this data portal is one of the flagship products for ECOWREX on the ECOWREX platform, and basically it hubs RE and EE information, that is renewable energy and energy efficiency information for all member states. Now, there have been a couple of updates. First of all, we have revamped the portal in such a way that it only contains data from 2010 right up to date, that is 2016. So when you go into this portal, you no longer see 2009, 2008 information. That is not to say that we are not interested in that information, but at this point in time, we are more concerned with the timeliness of data. So this is one of the major revamps that you will see in the data portal. Another thing you would see is that we have changed the tool that we use for the ECOWREX Interactive Data Portal. Now, I'll quickly go through some of the functionalities of this portal. This portal is designed in such a way that it makes it easy to share data. Now, you can share this data portal with a colleague via email or some social media platform. It is easy to integrate this platform as well into your website or your web platforms. There is now an option to download data. In the past, you couldn't download data in Excel format. Basically, all that you could do was download data in PDF. But now one can download data in Excel format as well. You get the consolidated data on each of the country profiles in an Excel format for further studies or further analysis if you so wish. Data analysis is something that we had been doing again in the past, but we decided to sort of tweak it a little bit. Now you see that we have what we call key performance indicators. In a few minutes, I'll be talking about that. Some of the new topics that you find again in this new data portal again are listed. Amongst them are electricity, renewable energy policy, you have your targets, you have investment, industry, and finance. Basically, there are about 9 of them that we have in the portal. Again, I say this keeping in mind that we will be revamping and we will continue adding new topics. So it could be that come next year you find additional topics. This is what we do. We continue to improve the portal. Now, on the right, you see that we have some diagrams there that's just basically giving a summary of the data archiving trajectory. What that means is that we just wanted to find out what our path was at the start of 2015, or basically in 2015, where we were in terms of data points and where we are now. So as you could see, as of December 2015, we had a little over 8,000 data points. And these data points were mostly for the year 2011, 2010 backwards. As of July 2016, we had moved up to 20,000 data points, a little over 20,000 data points. And again, as of September, we had 25,000 data points in the data portal. So by the end of 2016, you don't see a month there, but at the end of the year, we've already sort of closed for the year. That is in terms of our unit, ECOWREX unit, we had achieved 25,000 data points sitting in our data portal. That is the ECOWREX Interactive Data Portal. Our aim is to hit 50,000 data points by the end of next year. So you already see where we're going. We're trying hard to double the numbers, and this we will do in collaboration with our data contributors. Just a brief summary of what the ECOWREX Interactive Data Portal contains. It basically consists of 5 dashboards. Now, the map interface is the first dashboard you see once you load the page. When you go onto the ECOWREX platform and you click on country profiles, this is the first interface you meet. This interface basically contains social economic data, and this data is gathered from the World Bank. It is also important to state at this point in time that this information you see on this dashboard comes from the World Bank, but all the other data points you see come from within the region. So this is one of our goals. We're striving hard to make sure that the data we collect is locally generated. When I say locally generated, when we engage in knowledge development, we seek information that is in-house. We're trying as much as possible not to engage or not to use data that comes from outside. The reason why we're doing this is so that we can promote the data that comes from the region and get more visibility. So once you hit this interface, once you click on this interface, you hover over it, it already has a tooltip that provides information on the social economic data for each of the countries. It's clickable. You click on that country you desire, and it takes you into the next dashboard, which is the country profile dashboard. Now, this dashboard provides a summary of the indicators that we collect data for. So the information you see on this dashboard is in a tabular format. So as I mentioned earlier, all those topics you see, we have indicators, RE indicators, EE indicators, tabulated in a tabular format. You can see this on the right side if you see my mouse hovering. This is what the country profile dashboard looks like. Again, the third dashboard summarizes information for each of the member states. It's basically an energy balance dashboard that gives a summary of the demand side transformation and supply side of the country for a particular year. This dashboard is still being built because there is a huge knowledge gap. We only have energy balances for some countries, and we're striving very hard to generate, to get other countries involved so that we can close these data gaps. The two interesting dashboards that you see on the bottom right, I call them the key performance indicator dashboard. It's important to have data, but when the data is sitting in a database, it doesn't mean much. But when you begin to play with the data and you begin to engage in what we call visual communications, that data becomes more useful. So we thought again as a unit to take the data and begin to play around with it, to begin to generate some trends, begin to generate some key metrics that enable each of the countries to measure their current progress against their goals. So all the member states have sustainable energy goals, and it becomes easy to use these key metrics to see if country X is improving or country X is actually retrogressing in terms of meeting their sustainable energy goals. The same goes to the regional KPIs as well. However, this dashboard is slightly different from the country key performance indicators in the sense that the information you have here is aggregated. So unlike the key performance indicators where you have information on a country by country basis, at a regional level, on the regional KPIs dashboard, you have aggregated information. Now, I will not spend too much time on this. I will encourage you to take a look. The link is right below here. Those of you who haven't visited the dashboard yet, or who have not seen our key performance indicators, or who are interested in some sections, everything is available just at the click of a button. At this stage, I would like to move on very quickly. To the next section, what I deem a very, very important section, a more practical section as to how you can engage in data mining. Now, there's so many data mining techniques, and we are not going to delve into the more complicated techniques or more complicated methods, but rather we are going to be focusing on basic data techniques. The reason why I say that is because we have levels of data collection where data is collected in huge volumes, what we refer to as big data. But our studies has revealed that the data we collect here is not that voluminous, so it wouldn't be necessary for us to talk about complicated techniques. But as we grow as a region and we grow in knowledge management, of course, we will delve in and talk more and have more sessions, webinar sessions on more complicated data mining techniques. So here I have a few case studies. If you open up the PDF that was sent to you yesterday, I have here 4 case studies. And as a rule, what I generally encourage everyone to do, anytime you set yourself aside as a data contributor and you're called upon to contribute data, the data comes in several formats. It could be in PDF, it could be in HTML, it could be in Word format. Now, as a rule, we are interested in collecting data for specific years. So if you're called upon, for example, to collect data for 2014, and as I'll read for case 1, say, for example, you have a 45 megawatt hydropower plant installed in country X in 2014. You're given the source information as country X annual energy report 2015, and it's a PDF file. So you have a PDF file, you have the title of the PDF given as country X annual energy report, and in that PDF file, in that document, you have that information, 45 megawatt hydropower plant. How do you begin to extract this information? And this is where the crux of the training is. How do you pick out useful information from the lot of information that is being thrown at you in that document? As a rule, again, I say it is important that you search. First thing I usually encourage people to do, or I usually do, is that I use a quick search, mostly on HTML, and Control F, even in PDF, in Word document, will enable you find certain important keywords. So I would first encourage that you do a Control F and type in 2014. This is just a training manual, but I'm still going to do it anyways so that you could see. There you go. You see that it's already highlighted for me. First keyword, it is found 2014 head in the Word document. Now, imagine having a Word document or PDF that has 50 pages. You don't have time to read through everything. As a data scientist or as a data contributor, quick searches are very important. So this already helps you to begin to filter. Once you use the Control F, the quick search, it enables you to already filter the information to see what areas or what regions in the document where you have to, or where you're likely to have 2014 information. Once you've been able to identify that, the next step would be extracting the information. In our situation, we have a Word document, a PDF document, sorry, that was prepared or published in 2015, but the hydropower plant was installed in 2014. Now, this could be confusing sometimes for people. The question is, what now becomes the data year? A data year is one of the key metrics, one of the informations that we collect on our data portal. So it's important to also note that at this stage, the data year tells you what year the data belongs to. So if you have a hydropower plant in this situation, it's installed in 2014. Would I choose 2014 as the data year or 2015? At this point in time, you will choose 2014. Why? Because that is when the first data for that particular hydropower plant was generated. I have a little note here that says that the data year for this data point is 2014. Why? Because it first existed in 2014. Now, it goes to show you that you might have several data points or have several data sets in a particular document that may not necessarily coincide with the year of publication of that Word document. So I'm sure you've seen this, you're familiar with this. So publications are usually done after certain developments are taking place. For example, RE, EE developments that have taken place. You would see that something has happened in the past year, but the publication is taking place in maybe a later year. So this is a typical example. So as a first step, I have my Excel opened. This again was also sent to you. Now, how do I carry this information and put it in the questionnaire? Now, the document you're looking at is the questionnaire. This is sort of a modular form of the questionnaire. It's actually very voluminous, but we only took a section of it for the purpose of this training. The information we have is under electricity. So, and it's a hydropower plant. So you can see again that we have several header columns. I'm not going to be speaking much about this. We have a full training session that will take place next year on how to complete, how to fill this questionnaire, how to familiarize yourself with this questionnaire. But I just want to encourage that before you even begin to fill this questionnaire, we have a README section, just a short note, short summary of how one can complete the questionnaire. I encourage everyone to read it. And the contributor information, this is where you would input your information, your personal details. So I would put my information here, say Dennis, my last name, work with ECREEE. And say I'm contributing information for Ghana. Once I've done this, I can now begin to move to the questionnaire worksheets. Because the information that we are trying to extract is under electricity, we would move to the electricity section. Now, I would always encourage that you put in a description for your data set. Why? Because the description gives further information to that data set. If you only have 45 megawatts of hydropower plant installed in a tabular format, sometimes it doesn't make much sense, because then if you don't have a description, it doesn't give or throw more light on the data set. So the description is key. Anytime you have it, anytime you see it in a paragraph that goes vis-a-vis the data point or the data set that you seek to extract, I would encourage that you include that. Now, quickly going back to case, I have a 45 megawatt hydropower plant. So I know that the value, first of all, is 45 megawatts. Again, our questionnaires are designed in such a way that you can quickly fill it up, because that we have drop-down menus where one can select information quickly. That would avoid you having to brainstorm unnecessarily. So value is something that you need to key in yourself, so there's no drop-down menu for that. We need to find out if this is this type of data is government data. Now, this is also another very important addition we added to the data collection process. We seek to segregate, so to speak, information that is gathered from the government sector and that is gathered from the non-government sector. So from state implementers and non-state implementers, we need to find out where's this information coming from. So country X annual energy report. So let's just assume that this is information that is coming from a government implementer. So Ghana Energy Commission, for example, prepared this report. So here we would say this is government information. So we select government. We don't know whether it's on grid or off grid, so you do not click that. If it stated it, then you would be able to select that. Now, the data year, where the controversy arises. We have already established that because the data was first established or first existed in 2014, the data year would be 2014. So we select that. We also look for our source type. It's a report. And what is the source? Now, the source is the name of the publication. So I will just select that. Copy, paste that in here. We have that here. And the source year. Now, the source year is the year of publication. So that's the difference between the data year and the source year. So your source year is the year of the publication of that particular document or the source of the information. So if it's coming from an online portal, like a web page, usually you find the publication year or the year in which the publication was made at the bottom of the web page. Usually it's the year in which we're currently in. So since this is coming from a report, it's clear, it's been stated as 2015. And again, if this is coming from an online source, we'd encourage that you would state that web link here. It's very, very important because this throws more light and gives more integrity to the data set. Now, one last thing on this particular case would be to include the description. As a description, we would select this. Why? Because we want to keep our description very short. We don't encourage that we have huge lines of text or floating text in the description column. There is a temptation to do that, but as much as possible, we keep it short. So we will just select this and say a 45 megawatt hydropower plant was installed in country X in 2014. So with that being said, you finished your extraction process. It wasn't that difficult. I'd want to add quickly also that sometimes the information you're collecting doesn't have to do with capacities per se or generation capacity, but it has more to do with policies, programs or strategies or schemes. This can also get quite tricky, but once we move on to the second case, we will understand further or understand better what the or how one can extract information in case it's an RE policy or an energy access policy. Again, as a quick note, it says here that for a policy, the data year is the year in which the policy or law scheme, etc., was approved, but in the absence of such information, the year of implementation of the policy can be used as the data year. So without much ado, I would like us to move to the next case study. I picked this table from a baseline report for Ghana. This was one of many baseline reports that was prepared for each of the member states as a basis for the generation or the fabrication of the NREPs, or the National Renewable Energy Action Plans, and the National Renewable Energy Efficiency Plans. Now, you see that there is so much information, and this is information that's already useful because, again, a quick search will help you to find. It's not going to be this straightforward when you see it in the PDF, but once you use a quick search, you already identify, for example, you know that your data year gap is within 2010 to 2016, so you're already constrained. Again, say we do a quick search and say, we're seeking for 2011 information. So it already highlights 2011 as a keyword. Now, here you have several column headers. You have the area, that is the area in which the program is being engaged in, whether it's energy efficiency or renewable energy or energy access. You have the name of the program or the strategy or policy, whatever you want to call it. Then you have the date of approval, you have the description and the implementing government body and the status of that policy, so to speak. So I'm not going to go through all of these examples. I'll take about one or two. Let's just take the first one. Here it's straightforward. You have the specific area, you know that your constraint is energy efficiency. You have the name of the program. So we are going to start extracting this information. Again, you click your energy efficiency sheet and you select at this stage, you will select the name of the program. Now, the name of the program has been given as EDMF. So once you select that, You put that in here. Here again, you have some nice italics that shows you where to put the name or the title of the program. It says name of policy or law scheme, etc., that goes in here. So that is where the title of each of the schemes goes to. So here it says EDMF. We have been given the description as well. I would encourage, again, please, that one would read as much as possible and sieve out the salient information. There's no need to throw in all the floating text, but only that which is necessary for the data set. So you copy paste that into the description. I'm sure you can see where this is going already. We want to find out what is the status of this this program or policy. It says provides funding for energy efficiency activities in the industrial, commercial, and residential sectors. The status says here that it's operational. So again, you have several options to choose from. You don't see operational here, but obviously ongoing would be the most appropriate one to choose. Now, we haven't completed our description, but I'd like us to finish the other column headers first. Again, because this baseline report was prepared by the member states, the information that is coming from a government source. The value in unit are grayed out because we're talking about policy. We're not talking about numeric figures at this point in time. Again, the most important section, how to be able to distinguish or to detect what the data year is. Here you've been given the approval date, but you've not been told clearly what the year or the data year is. So what do you do in a situation like this? If you're found in a situation or you come across a situation where you're given the data year, you use that. But in a situation where, or a situation like this where you do not have the data year, where you're giving the approval date, we need to go with something. In some situations, again, I would highlight that soon, you might not have anything, but we'll get to that in a minute. But in a situation like this where you have the approval date, again, our little note says that for policy, the criteria or the rule that we use is that the year in which the policy or the program was approved is selected as the data year. So in this case, we're quite lucky because the approval date is what we have here. So we use the approval date as the data year. Now, one may argue, why is it that we use the approval date and not the implementation date? Because the policy usually goes through a lot of, procedures before it is finally passed as a policy. At this stage, it's already operational, but it was approved in 2011. But in a situation where you are giving the implementation year and you don't have the approval date, you will use the implementation year as the data year. One would have to play around with this a few times to become more conversant with it. So we have our data year, our source type. We're taking this, we need to find out what is the source of this information. Okay, so we have our source written here at the bottom. The source is given as a baseline report for Ghana in 2015. So it's a report. The source is also stated as baseline report for Ghana 2015. So that is straightforward. You just copy and paste that into the cell. Here, we do not have our source here. Again, we try to detect what is our source here. Source here, that is the year of publication of that report. The baseline report was 2015, so we select 2015 here. Again, if you have a web link that takes you directly to this document, you would provide that here. Now, coming back to the description, there is a specific format that we follow when we fill the data. Now, I say this because the data goes through several processes before it is eventually published on the data portal. once the data is extracted, we do data cleansing and data pre-processing, and we do data transposition. So in transposing the data, sometimes the format of the data changes. So what we do is that we have a generic format that we follow. Now, this format I've stated here in red, this is how we'd always encourage our data contributors to fill information for policies under the description column. So here you have your title, then you have your approval date or the time frame, you have the status and the implementing institution. So we already know that the title was given as EDMF. That's the title of the program. So very quickly, I'll put EDMF here. So you can already see that I am already following this format. So we have the title and the description that is adjacent to it. Then the next thing is we have the approval date. Again, there is a way we can break the line in Excel. When you hold your Alt key and you hit enter, that breaks the line for you. We like this because this makes the data nice and neat. It's easy for us to see various sections or various points of that particular data set or that data point. When it's clustered like that, it's hard to see the information, but once you have it on a separate line, you break the lines, it's easy, it's clean, and it's neat. So I'll just paste that in here. Sorry. So approval date. The approval date was given as 2011. Again, you hold your Alt Enter to break the line. What is the status? I believe the status was given as operational. So in this case, we can say ongoing. You can say operational, but in selecting here, you will select ongoing, which is just pretty much the same thing. And lastly, the implementing institution. So what is the implementing institution? Ghana Energy Commission. I select that, copy paste, and just paste that adjacent to the information on the implementing institution. So with that, you have completed your data set. It's as easy as that. I would encourage you to play around with this. I might be going through this quite quickly, but I'd like us to move on to the next session. But I just want to state that there are some other situations. For example, when you look at this row of data, you realize that you do not have an approval date. When you're faced with a situation like this, where you do not know the data year, or you cannot find the data year, but you feel that the information is useful, you can still state it, all right, and leave the data years blank. Once that information comes back to us, we will do further desk research. It's also important, and we also encourage you people to do some desk research. Usually that's what we do as a first rule of law. We do a desk research on this program. It says kerosene lantern replacement program. I just do a quick search in Google, try to find out if there is information on the data year or the implementation year of that program. If I can't find anything, there is no stress about that. Fill all the other information in the Excel sheet, send it to us, and we will do further analysis. We will try to find out and probe further to see where that data is coming from, what that data year is. Good. So this is basically for policies. The same applies to RE policies. If you have an RE policy, you would follow the same procedure. Nothing changes. The structure of the worksheets are basically the same for each of the worksheets. So I would move very quickly again to another section, our case 3. Case 3 has to do more with investment, industry, and finance. This is information that we started collecting again within the course of the last 1 year. Now, there is so much information here. Again, you see that you have your donors, you have the activity, you have the amount, you have the time frame, and the financing instrument. Again, we have a format that we follow. It's not too different from what we saw previously in the last case study. Once you follow this format, it becomes easy. It makes the data more presentable. It makes it easy for us to access this information. So I'll take one quick example because I know that you might have some questions. So Picking the first example, you've been given a donor as an African Development Bank. You have the activity as the Power Sector Master Plan, and this is in brackets stated as planned. You have the amount that is given as 1.2 million units of account, and you have the time frame given as 2013. Again, very easy. The worksheet is user-friendly. Many of the cells are already pre-filled with information, have a nice drop-down menu. So how do I start filling this information? I could just start, for example, with the values. I have 1.2 million here, so I'll put the value in as 1.2 million. So $1.2, and you look through the unit. We have tried as much as possible to be able to incorporate as many units as possible, again, based on experience, past experience. So here we have million of UA units account. So you have that here, so 1.2 million units of account. We need to find out what the data year is. You've only been given the time frame. The time frame has been given as 2013, which really isn't much. It's little information, but this is the year that has been stated. So we state the data year as 2013. In some cases, example, the one below, you are given a bracketed data year or time frame. So you have 2013 to 2015. How would one be able to select the data year? Would you go with 2014, 2015, or 2013? Again, as a rule of law, the year in which the program or the activity began is the year you will go with as the data year. So in this situation, you will choose, you'll choose 2013. But because we're working with the first example, let's just stick to plan. Now, we need to find out what our source type is. Again, it's not that easy. Sometimes you don't find this information easily. You need to do some desk research to find out where the information is coming from. Or better still, if it's in one PDF document, then you know that this is the information that is coming from this particular document. At a later stage, next year, we will talk more about referencing, how to go into detail, referencing, how to improve the data sets by including more or detailed referencing that is to do with the source type, the source, and the source year. Because there are various scenarios that play out, again, depending on what document or what information you're gathering. Here we have the baseline report for Liberia. So this is where the source of information is coming from. So again, we just copy paste that. That is the source. So the source is always the title of the publication or the document that you have. Now, it's been stated as a report, so we know already our source type is a report. We select that quickly, and our source here has been given as 2014, yes. So again, if you have a web link, you should always provide this. This helps us a lot. It makes it easy for an end user to even trace the data. Now, trying to find out what type of investment is this. In this situation, we are not told. The thing is with the African Development Bank is that the African Development Bank has activities, some of which are publicly funded, some of which are privately funded, or some which are done in conjunction with private and public entities. Here, nothing has been stated. Nothing has been stated, so you leave that blank. But in case you have that information, you need to select whether it's public, private, or whether it's a public-private investment. The status. Here we do not know. Unfortunately, that information is not provided, but if, for example, this AFDB activity is already ongoing or has been completed, you would select completed. If it has been implemented or if it is in the planning stages, here it says planned. We are not sure. Sometimes this information is thrown out here, but the status of the activity could have changed. But because it says planned, we go with planned here. We need to find out whether this is government data or non-government data. It's government data because the information is coming from the baseline report, which we know was prepared by the member states. In this case, that would be Liberia. So I'll let the very last bit, the description. Unfortunately, we don't have much information here on the description. All we're told is the power sector master plan. It's all right to put that in there because, again, it gives us some information. It's better to have something than nothing. We copy and paste that in here, and you're done. So again, it looks straightforward from this point, but then it's not always this straightforward. But I'm sure at this stage you already have an idea of where this is going. So again, the same entry formats. Because we don't have much information, we can't fill this here. We can do it for some of them. We have the power sector master plan. Let's just take, for example, that is the title, but there is no description. What is the time frame? We're told that the time frame is 2013. So I just copy that. Again, using your Alt-Enter key, you break the line, you paste that in. Sorry, I'm missing a T here. Good. So for 2013, I break my line again, Alt-Enter. The status of this particular data set has not been given, so we ignore that. The funding amount has been given. So this is information that is important, information that we desire to capture. Sorry, that should be. So funding amount. Just going to paste that in here. It's been given as 1.2 million UA, units of accounts. Break the line one more time. Donor information has been given. Here it said that the donor was the AFDB. So we just put that in here. And lastly, we have our implementing institution. In this situation, we don't have it, so then we leave it as it is. So once you're done, that's it. You might have multiple data sets, so we always encourage that you can always add another row of data sets to include more information. So you would copy and paste that in here, just in case you have more than one. I'd like us to move to the very last case study as time is fast spent. Here again, you realize that we are faced with more numeric information. I'm going to show you something that would help to alleviate or sort of improve how to collect data, especially when you have this information thrown at you in chunks and where you don't have information to copy and paste one by one for each of the member states. You have information here on renewable energy capacity. Here stated as grid connected for each of the member states in 2014. The source is also given as the ECOWAS report, that is the RENEE status report prepared by REN 21. Now, this information comes in a tabular format. You have the country, you have the hydropower plant, the hydropower. It could be very annoying and frustrating sometimes. You see the information, but how to segregate it becomes a problem. What do you do when you're faced with a situation like this? I would encourage, I'm just going to create a new sheet here, show you something. First of all, just copy. If you don't have the selection tool, you would select that here to be able to copy because we're copying from a PDF. Control C to paste. Now, when you paste that, put it in the middle so that we can see it properly. You see that everything is pasted into one cell. When I say one cell per row though. So Benin, the capacity is vis-a-vis the country in that specific cell. And this is not what we want. So what do we do in a situation like this? There is a small feature in Excel that helps us to segregate the information or helps us to separate desired information. It's called text to column. Now, when you click on this, first you would select the data or the information you'd want to transpose, the information you want to segregate or separate. You click on this, you would leave this as delimited. Click next. Now here you have the ability to choose. How do you want to do the separation? Do you want to do it by comma or space or by tabs? Because the information that we want to separate is separated already by white space, that's between Benin, you have one white space between Benin and the numeric value. So we would select space. So I'll then check tab and select space. Already you can see that it's giving you a nice preview at the bottom. So once you select that, you click next, and the last step would be to select the destination. Where do you want the results of the information to be pasted? We just selected cell H4, and you would click finish. Voila. So already it's not perfect, but it already saves you a lot of work. You have the numeric values have been thrown into other columns, but because some of the countries have consist of 2 words, you see that the numeric values are further pushed into a 3rd column and a 4th column. So again, it's easier. It's much easier to work on these few ones just by hand. I'll do this for the countries in question. And I'll do this for Gambia as well. And finally for Sierra Leone. Good. So then I'll just copy this, more like cut and paste back, and do likewise for Sierra Leone. So this is nice and neat. So this is information that you can easily now begin to transpose. For example, if we saying that we are collecting data for Mali, so you're only interested in Mali at this point in time, you would go to the electricity section. It's a hydropower plant, I want to believe. Again, I said that you can easily create new rows and just duplicate that information here. So we know that this information is grid connected, so we can select on grid. We know the data. Where's the data coming from? The source. It's coming from a non-state actor. So here we'll select non-government. Because we are collecting data for Mali, we'll select this 300, paste it in here. We know our units already. We can easily copy and paste that or drag down with the autofill. What is the data here? We're told that these capacities were installed in 2014. So we already know as a rule that 2014 becomes our data year. The source is given as a report. Sorry, that's the source type. And the source here, again, is always the name of the publication. So we copy and paste that. We drop that in here. Our source here, which is the year of publication, again, is given as the 2014. So we want drop down, we select that. This is online. I don't have the link now, but we would ideally, in a real life situation, you would paste the web link here because this publication is online. How about the description? So in this situation, you do not have a description. You just have a table with data in it. It doesn't say much. You could create your own description. Again, this is something we encourage you to do, just not more than 1 line. I would go with something like this. Okay, so I would say installed hydropower capacity, bracket grid connected in Mali, because we're talking about Mali, in 2014. So 300 megawatt of installed hydropower capacity, grid connected capacity. I think this would be better. Grid connected. Capacity, and voila, there you have it. So you would have finished with this data set. The very last example, before we move on to your Q&As, you're given almost a similar situation, but this time we have more technologies. Again, we will go with Mali. Now, I'm sure you see a lot of zeros and you're wondering, why would I even want to populate this information? I'll get to that in a minute. But again, you copy paste. Let's put it in our new sheet. Just put it adjacent to the previous one. And here, you see that, yes, see that the information is already separated in into different columns or different cells. Now, real quickly, copy paste this. Okay. Because these ones are separated by commas, it's easy for one to, And now you have a situation like this. Just for example, if you, in case you copy and paste and the information you have here is not segregated. Again, you can use the same feature that we had here. This is going to separate the information into different columns. Now, this is one way to go. It all depends on how the paste function works. So you have this for each of the countries. Again, it's not perfect, but it works in the sense that it saves you a lot of time. Because in many situations, you're not going to be typing information that you have from a PDF or from a Word document. You would just want to copy and paste and then, refine or make some changes to the text. Again, we're interested in Mali. Now, one would say, okay, why do I have zeros here? You have Mali, for example, has a hydro of 300, has solar of 0, wind and biomass of 0. The reason why we choose to collect this information, even if there is no capacity, because we want to know the status. Now, if we leave that blank, it gives room for assumptions, because once the data is not there, one may also think that, well, maybe the data is not yet available. Maybe the data exists, but it just hasn't been captured. But once we know that in Mali, in 2014, there was no solar PV installed, then you would have to state that as 0 megawatts. That way, when we publicize information in our data portal, anyone who goes in there and sees it will know that indeed, Mali has no solar PV installed in that particular year. But if that information is left as blank, someone may be hopeful and think that, well, maybe in a later year, this information for 2014 will be provided. In order to eliminate all the assumptions and prevent people from surmising, we state that information. So because we are interested in Mali, again, very easy. What we can do is we select this, copy and paste. You can copy this one by one, but again, it's easy to just right click in a new cell and paste special. I like to use the transpose feature, one of my favorite. See, so I have that here. It just transpose information for me. Why have I done this? Because when I look on my electricity sheet here, for example, I'm just going to create another row here, first of all, for hydro, and paste. You realize that the information you have here is in this particular order: hydro, solar, wind, and biomass. And this happens to be in the same order in our sheet. In the questionnaire, you have hydro, solar, wind, bioenergy. In this situation, it's biomass that you have. So once I transpose, it's easy for me to just copy that. Again, this becomes so useful when you have huge chunks of data where you wouldn't want to be pasting information one by one. So I take that and I just paste values and voila. So there you have it. Okay, I think I missed one. Yeah, okay, sorry. I missed one, so let's do that again. In transposing, I forgot to carry this, the very last one. So you'd select this again, I'll do this again, right click on it, paste special, transpose. Now we have all of this, that's good. Again, it's easy to work on this. If you don't want to, again, you don't want to, say for example, you want to get rid of the commas, we can easily do this if you don't want to type it one by one, because again, it could be a lot of work when you have volumes of information. We select our cell, but again, it's easier to do this by hand because we only have four rows of information. So we copy this to our electricity section here. We paste the values. We know the units are in megawatts. We know it's for 2014. So you realize that information here is the same because it's the same publication, the same source type, the same source here. So again, many of you may already be familiar with this. Just drag down. Sometimes it doesn't always, yes, for example, the year. So just want to copy and paste that and do likewise for this. The autofill doesn't always come out perfect. So voila. So with that, you're done. Again, same data type, non-government, you select that. We know it's on grid because that's what our source tells us. And here we have, you need to now create your own description. So I'll copy and paste. It's the same data set that we replicated for Mali. So this would be 300 megawatts of installed hydropower, grid connected capacity in Mali in 2014. We try to maintain the same structure in terms of description, especially when it comes to installed capacity or electricity generation. So I'll just replicate that into the other cells and change this to solar, because here we are talking about solar PV. So because this was given a 0, we'll say no installed solar PV grid connected capacity in Mali in 2014. The same applies to this and bioenergy as well. We change this to wind, small letters, and we change this to biomass because this was very specific. Here it said biomass. Now, bioenergy is just the umbrella, so to speak. It's one of the renewable energy technologies, but under it, of course, we have biomass, biofuels, and biogas, something I will not go into now. But again, come next year, we will have more sessions and we will go through in detail some of the terminologies that would enable you, that will facilitate contributing data effectively to ECOWREX. Good. So with that being said, I bring this session to a close. I would encourage you to go through it. We didn't go through all the examples, but I encourage you. I put in more than one for each of the sections so that you can try this. This video will be available not long after the session. We are going to put this on a dedicated subpage on ECOWREX so that you can always go back to it in future.